Grand risings to you all. Hello, you beautiful, glorious, gorgeous people. Hello out there. I hope you are fabulously well. Go, go, go. So ready, steady, go, go, go. Good morning to you all. Craig says, can't take my dog to the park anymore. The ducks keep biting him. I should have known this would happen. He's pure bred. He's purebred. Oh my days. Grand rising, Shanti, and hello, Greg and Catherine and Sarah. Yes, Sarah, I note your comment about TNT. Yes, TNT will be closing this week. Sarah said, good morning, Sonia. Turns out you were very prudent to do your own thing after the announcement of TNT closing down very shortly. Yes, I'll be commenting a bit more on that later. And I see in the comments, you are already commenting on the sky. It is outrageous out there. Has been all weekend. Yesterday was particularly bad, I have to say, certainly in this area. And I filmed it and I put it on X. And you should see some of the comments from imbeciles on there. Absolutely ridiculous. Not nobody, but plenty of people either don't have a clue or they are complicit. Either way, that sky is not natural. It's not natural. And I've been getting loads of comments this morning about the sky today. It's not good, is it? Hello, Brett, and Healing the Silence, and Paul. Paul says, what time and channel is your Wednesday 5G interview, Sonia? Well, it won't be on YouTube. It will be on Rumble. It will be on X, and it will be, I can't give you a time yet, Paul. That's the bottom line. And I'm not entirely sure it'll be available to the public on Wednesday because that's when it'll be available to my patrons. It should be Thursday. But more details to follow, but I'm looking forward to that. Yes, Healing the Silence. Did anyone see that glitch of Swiftie? And people are now seeing a different side to her. What, the side that we are like, how much more of Taylor Swift can we take in this world right now? Talk about an absolute bombardment. It's insane, isn't it? And hello, blind hip shaker. And hello, flicking. And the Count of Jermaine. And hello, Kath. Hope you're all well. And welcome once again to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. And guess it is now 9:02 on Monday, 16th of September, 2024. How the devil are you all? How are you? There was, it's so funny that somebody made a comment about me saying, how the devil are you? As pointing to me being a Satanist, apparently. There are some people out there with very loose screws. So yes, we'll be talking about TNT a little bit later. Also, sorry, we were out of sync with some of our guests on Friday. It's an issue with OBS, the new operating system that I'm using. We're working to rectify it. But for today, I'm reverting back to the old system until we do. I've been blessed to be able to purchase new equipment, but I don't claim to be tech savvy. However, I am a quick learner and my intention is to build up a show literally from the ground up, eventually bringing in people to do all these jobs that enable a show to run. But for now, it's me running the ship and I'm on a steep learning curve. Yes, I am, but I will get there. I always do. It's my thing. I persevere. I'm a finisher, as Kate McCann once famously said about herself. Probably the only thing we have in common, but there you go. And also, mentioning the sky, I see that the Curly crew also mentioned it. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning, just nipped shop for milk, 6:30 a.m. and the sky was beautiful. Already it's full of chemtrails. Sonia, what do we do about this? Oh my God. Well, the first thing, Curly crew, is we have to get people to accept it's actually happening, because while people continue to deny it's actually happening, what can we do, really? Bottom line, what can we do in such a situation? But we must be able to do something. I have a motto, and that is there is a way around everything. Now, I'm not sure whether that's a good motto or not, but somebody once said they're going to put that on my grave. And also, on a much more serious note, of course, I see today BBC newsreader Huw Edwards is due to be sentenced after admitting to having 41 child abuse images, which were sent to him by convicted paedophile Alex Williams on WhatsApp. The images include 7 category A images, the most serious classification. We've talked about this before. If you have category A images, then we are talking about extreme torture, extreme abuse, and probably death. Absolutely horrendous stuff. And he was in possession of them. And he's set to be sentenced at Westminster Magistrates Court. He's currently on conditional bail. And that will be at 10 a.m. today when he will be sentenced. He actually pled guilty in July. And we're being told he could face up to 10 years in jail. Now, oftentimes, 8 out of 10 times, according to the National Crime Agency, people get off with a non-custodial sentence. I don't think he will. I think it's too high profile. And I sincerely hope he doesn't, because it needs to send a message to all the other predators out there. And by the way, legacy media, stop calling this indecent images. As the brilliant Marilyn Hawes pointed out to us a while ago, these are not indecent images. These are not child porn. These are images of real children being abused for the pleasure of predators and perverts. That's what they are. That's exactly what they are. And you know what? It almost lessens it, doesn't it? When people say indecent images, it's a bit like, ooh, naughty. No, this is literally such extreme torture and harm being done to children. So we need to call it what it is. And by the way, what are we to make of this apparent second assassination attempt on Donald Trump? What are your thoughts in the comments on this? This is quite curious, isn't it? Because lots of people don't even believe that the first one was legit. Good morning to you, Vanessa. How are you, my love? I hope you're well. And and hello, Randy, and on a plane. And Christine, how are you? Went to a rich relatives do recently, mainly RAF, asked them about geoengineering, and they acted as if we were mad. They'd never heard of it. Oh, gosh. Ian says there's no natural weather anymore. Healing the silence. I hear you. He had cat A images. Lulu tends not to comment, but she tunes in every week. Good morning to you, Lulu. Thank you for joining our live chat this morning. So Ant said they won't stop because they can't beat him. Oh, I'm not quite sure what that relates to. They want him gone. I'm no fan of his, but I do think it's sinister. I hear you, Rachel. It's kind of peculiar, right? But Pink Diamond said it's funny. He was going down in the polls, and last time his ear piercing got him up in the polls, so I can see why he tried again. So we can take from that, Pink Diamond is not convinced this is legit. And good morning to you, Craig Campbell, and thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Morning, Be Happy. Morning, HK Very. And yes, how are you, Crazy Bunny? Yes, very kind of him. Very kind indeed. So, yeah, it's kind of peculiar, but let's just kind of look at the details. The suspect, named as Ryan Wesley Routh, 58, apparently fled the scene when agents opened fire on him, abandoned his rifle and other items, but was later arrested. And this took place in Florida. The agents had spotted this man pointing a rifle through a fence lining Trump's private golf club in West Palm Beach, which is a few hundred yards away from where Trump was. And what's interesting is in the papers, I'm actually going to quote you directly what I read in the Daily Mail. The actual wording was a few hundred yards away from the president. He's not president yet, but how interesting that they're saying that. Anyway, the FBI, Secret Services, local sheriff's office have just given a press conference. This was yesterday, of course. And there were witnesses. Secret Services say the official in charge of staying one hole ahead of Trump on his golf course spotted a rifle sticking out of bushes, and their agents opened fire. A witness then saw a man running from bushes and entering a black Nissan car, which was pulled over by police, and the man was detained. An AK-47 style rifle with a scope was recovered from a bush where the suspect was seen, along with 2 backpacks and a GoPro camera, as you do. Let us welcome in our first guest. Do you know, we got so much to cover today. I can't even believe it. By the way, did I already tell you that this weekend I spent with the Poults, which was absolutely lovely, celebrating my daughter's birthday yesterday. I am so grateful for my family. Can I just put it out there to the universe? Thank you so much for blessing me with the family that I have. We love you so much. Thank you for everything yesterday. And I hope your weekend was also suitably fabulous. So let us welcome in our first guest and check that everything is tickety-boo. And here she is, the very lovely Good morning, Rachel. Rachel, you're very dramatic life at the moment. You're leading this. Everybody, this is Rachel Elno, and Rachel, you probably do remember from being in Dragon's Den. She's an entrepreneur, brilliant businesswoman, but more recently. Rachel, forgive me for describing you like this. You've been a real truth seeker, haven't you? You probably always were, even as a dragon. It's absolutely in your nature. I'm no doubt about that whatsoever. But you've very much come over to this side now, haven't you?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, truth speaker. I first started speaking out in September 2020, and I did a video, Rachel Speaks Out, which went viral and then was deleted by YouTube and Facebook after about 250,000 views. And I thought, I'm onto something here, because otherwise they wouldn't have taken it down. And it kind of led me to really, and because I've been back in business, I started to get really interested in the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, and then I realized, oh my God, this is like a corporate global hostile takeover bid. I recognized all the signs. So yeah, I have been speaking out, and then I did stand as well. I've stood for election 3 times, and in the general election, not expecting to win at all, but just to use it as a way to get the message out, because obviously you
Exactly.
get a free mailing to 47,000 people here in Derbyshire Dale. So it was worth doing, because we have to sort of pattern interrupt this mass formation psychosis, which is amongst the public that totally believe the official story, you know. So anyway, that's me in a potted
But
history of
it's
me.
lovely. And the thing is, I think it's really inspirational because you've been absolutely at the heart of mainstream media, as indeed was I for many, many years. And it's absolutely
Mm,
wonderful when you see people who come out of that kind of, well, echo chamber, and how free thinking many of us actually are when we're not bound up by,
yeah,
the restrictions of MSM. But Rachel, Sean, one of our viewers, sent me a video of you, which I watched, and I was so disturbed, like
mm,
so disturbed. You're inside your house. You had a
yeah,
pile of Derbyshire cops outside, literally forcibly smashing their way into your
yeah,
home. What the hell was happening, Rachel?
yeah. So basically, they believed that I had a drunk driver in my home. And this allegation was made by some people, some neighbours over the street, because they alleged that their stationary car, had been hit by a van, and they'd seen I haven't seen their witness statements, so this is just kind of what I've pieced together, that they'd seen this van driving off. I don't know if they actually witnessed the incident, the driving off and parking in my drive, basically. And they must have said to the police, oh, we think he was drunk, you know. And I knew for a fact that that was highly unlikely to be true, because this was a guest in my home. So anyway, I have the police at my door saying, open the door, we want to speak to X. I can't quite, I didn't have the presence of mind. This is a very important point. I should have, if I'd had the presence of mind, videoed that first stage. The bit that was videoed was my son had the presence of mind to come downstairs when he heard
Yeah,
what was going on with his camera on
yeah, he did a
to
good
capture the
job.
whole thing. He did. But anyway, so I said to the police, they said, we want to come in. And I said, well, I don't think you're allowed to do that. I think you need a warrant. Do you have a warrant? They said, we don't need one. And I said, I think you do. I need to speak to my solicitor. And they said, no time for that. But open the door or we're going to smash it in. And I said, no, I don't consent to that. And I need to speak to my solicitor. You need to have a warrant. I need to see a warrant. I need to get some advice on this. I don't believe you can do this. And they said, you've got 10 seconds. Now, I thought actually that I did actually think they were bluffing, to be honest. When they said, you've got 10 seconds or open, it sort of felt like a bit of a bluff. And then they started smashing. And if you look at the video, they smashed all 4 panes of glass,
Yep,
not just one to
yep,
get through.
that's
And
right.
the door I'd opened it on a chain, so they'd seen that I opened it on a chain, and then I closed it and I locked it. So they could see that it literally, I was not bolting it and putting, like, so literally it was just on a key. it could have actually been it's a bit of a tricky lock, one of those locks you have to sort of wiggle the key a little bit to open. It's so that's why he could have taken the key out and done it from the other side, and he would have opened it. But when they started smashing, I just thought, this is outrageous. And
I was very disturbed.
my son actually kind of let them do it in a way, in the sense of, because he was filming it, because it was the shock of it was like, oh my God, like seriously. Now, having looked at it afterwards, I think that they were relying on something which is called Section 17 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, which says that if there's a serious criminal on the loose or a drunk driver on the loose, and by that meaning, say for example, my guest had, sorry, I should switch this off. Sorry.
Don't worry, happens to us all. That's the beauty of live broadcasting.
Now, had the guest in my house knocked someone over, had a head-on collision, and it was like a car crash, and that there'd been injury, and then it potentially, could be justified. But to scrape a stationary car, as I understand it, is a civil matter.
Right.
I haven't actually taken legal advice. This is just advice that's been coming in. But as I understand it, if you scrape a stationary car, it's a civil matter. You exchange insurance details, and the police
We've all been there.
Involved.
I've been there. So yeah, I believe it is a civil matter. How many were there?
Police, four, but then they sent another four arrive. I think it was four arrived up the path as the first four were leaving, because I'd actually when they did the breathalyzer and it was 0, and I'm like, I phoned 999 and I said, there's 4 criminals in my house who've broken in. You need to arrest them. They said they're police officers. I said, no, they're criminals. You need to arrest them, because just because someone puts on a uniform that says police on it, it doesn't mean that they can do what the hell they like.
It was such exactly, but it was such an extreme reaction. That's what I think just threw me. And you were saying, I do not consent to this. I do not consent to this, because obviously policing in our country is supposed to be by consent.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of it. But it was such an extreme reaction, Rachel. I found it really very distressing, the whole thing. It seemed like such violence and aggression towards you for no apparent reason. And then I wondered, well, is there some kind of issue that they have with her, having been famous, speaking out? So I had to wonder that.
My son actually said that to me. He said, Mum, I think it's because of who you are. That's why they did it. Because the thing is that it was about 90 minutes between my guest coming back, because he came in the house and went straight to bed. It was about 90 minutes later, because I'd gone to bed. It was about 9, so it was about 11:30 at night. So it was, and also the other thing, Sonia, is that my gate has got a padlock on it and a sign saying visitors by appointment only. And I secured that because when you stand for election, you have to have your address on everything. So I improved my security. So that was the first question I said to the police. How did you get in through the gate? And it says visitors by appointment only. So they'd already violated they were already trespassing, because there was a very clear sign, visitors by appointment. But they said, well, we've taken it off the hinges. So immediately that I was like, that's a violation of my, and I've been learning about castle doctrine as well, which is a very, very ancient common law right. Your home is your castle.
Exactly. That expression comes from somewhere. Absolutely, it does. And they trespassed all over it. I do believe that they turned a civil matter into a criminal one, which is partly what interested me. But it was the level of aggression they displayed towards you. And as I say, I kept wondering, I wonder if it's because she is just too powerful in some respects, in a sort of alternative sense. You co-created a community, didn't you, in that area?
Yeah, well, we we brought some people together and we crowdfunded the purchase of Crestbrook Dale, or
53
53
acres.
acres of Crestbrook Dale. Now, the interesting thing about that is that because there was a whole local kind of hate campaign erupted because they thought we were like insane, anti-vax, hippie kind of like, there was a whole local hate campaign, and then all these sort of crimes started to happen. And there've been a series of at least 10, I think more than 10 crime reports of various things that have happened, including the theft of a caravan, smashing our stuff. And we've reported every one of these to Derbyshire Police. It's been a systematic campaign, which we believe is connected into the local hate campaign. And they're like, oh, nothing we can do, love. You've got no evidence. You need to put CCTV up. There's nothing we can do. And yet this incident was on the basis of an allegation by a neighbour who actually, they were obviously quite, I mean, they're naturally pissed off that someone, but they had no evidence, the police nor these neighbours had no evidence whatsoever to support that allegation. It was just I bet they've been down the pub drinking, and I bet they're drunk.
Yes, and we're already ticked off with her anyway, so let's just go for it. So what has been, I mean, I've got to read you some of these comments. People are not impressed, which is exactly what I expected, because who would be impressed by it? And I will actually put a link to the video in the description at the end of the stream so you can see it for yourself. We are not exaggerating. It is horrible. It is horrible to witness. It really is. All I can hear is a woman in great distress as mob-handed cops are breaking into her home. And thank God for your son having the presence of mind, Rachel, because at least you've captured it.
Yeah, and this is the thing I have to say about my sons. They're very awake. And it's not because of me, it's because they watch people like Joe Rogan and all these cool dudes and Alex Jones, and they're very awake. And I think this is the thing with our youth. Because they've got alternative media, they're not consuming mainstream media. They're not on the BBC. They're not reading the newspapers. They're online, and they're getting the truth, and they're questioning everything. And, you know, so my sons, they knew instinctively that this was wrong, which is why you'll hear my sons in the background saying, you're cooked, man.
Yeah, I love that.
This is going viral.
And I loved it. It was like, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, they are cooked. So what now? Where do you go with this now?
Well, this is the question. This is the big question. How do you get a remedy? How do you get redress for the situation? Do you complain to the police? Now, I've complained to the police before, and it's whitewashed. Do you sue the police? Do you sue the individuals? Do you go through a lawyer? What do you do? And so this is the thing that I'm very open to. And I've had a mass of advice and interesting suggestions coming through. So I'm kind of keeping my powder dry on that, and I'm assessing all of my options and getting as much information as I can before I decide what to do next. But one thing I did think is I have to put this out. I have to put this footage. It is abbreviated footage. I have got obviously the full length thing. So I just put an abbreviated video out just to show the level of, and the thing about it, Sonia, is it's not just about me, because the man who came to fix the door, and they left me completely vulnerable, and it was
awful when you see them walking away, and it's like you just left her home in tatters to a certain degree, right?
Well, I said to them, what are you going to do about the door? So it's not our problem, love. And it took 2 calls to the police to actually finally get them to send an emergency panel guy to board it up. And he arrived at 4:30, so I was up all night. And I was talking to him. He said, oh, this is a common occurrence, love. You know, it's like, this is my job. I follow the police around and I board up. And he said, if you'd had a solid door, they would have just chainsawed it in half. He said, I went to a door the other day, which was a beautiful home. It must have cost about £8,000 to store. It was like thick. And they just took a chainsaw and they just cut it in half. And so I know that this is happening systematically, day in, day out, to people. And this is why I put the police oath at the end of that video, because many people don't realize the police oath. which is impartially to protect the people and their property. And I did say to the police, it wasn't on that video, the abbreviated one, but I did say, are you acting under your oath? Because they were not protecting the people and their property, because I had nothing to do with that accident. I had nothing to do with it. It's not like I was driving.
No, exactly.
It was absolutely nothing to do with me.
It was a completely disproportionate response, Rachel. It literally,
Yes.
it wasn't like anybody was lying out in the street having been injured. There was a stationary car out in the street. It was a completely disproportionate response, and one has to wonder why. Let me read you some of these comments. And there's so many actually. Let me see, where can I go? And Marilyn said the police should be had up for wasting police time. Honor says every officer is responsible and personally liable for their own behaviour. Is that true though? I suppose so. Yeah, they can be held to account.
Well, one of the greatest things is malfeasance in public office. Now that can carry a lifetime imprisonment. Now, malfeasance in public office as well doesn't just apply to the police, it applies to civil servants, to MPs, I believe. Every single person who is paid by the taxpayer has an absolute responsibility and a duty to uphold the laws and to be responsible with their powers. So that is the ultimate, and lots of people have said, go after the individuals.
Yes, very interesting. Rachel, will you please keep me up to speed with what's going on? Because I want to be able to report back to our viewers. They're deeply disturbed by what has taken place. I'm just grateful that you're okay. But this stuff, you could have got PTSD from that. Is that horrible? And as I say, people, I will put a link. Yes, go on, Rachel.
This is the thing, because I've trained in trauma. I did a 4-year professional training in trauma healing. So I know about how this affects the nervous system. And I have noticed it in myself. It's like it's really difficult to settle. You've got an activated nervous system, and it's like it completely violates your peace of mind and in your body, and it's trauma. And I have been really having to look after myself and nurture myself to really regulate my nervous system to heal, because trauma is invisible, but if trauma were visible, this is what one of my trainers used to say, if trauma were visible, people would be like in a leg in plaster in a hospital bed covered in bandages.
Yeah.
Trauma can be that serious, but it's because it's invisible, people don't realize how serious trauma is. So yeah, it was deeply traumatic, not just for me, but and my sons, but also for my guest. Because I don't want to go into that in too much detail, but the full video would show the horror he went through, and also he has had a horror at the hands of the police, which is it kind of doubles up,
Yes, I hear you. I hear you. They see the public as the enemy, says Shug. Solsan said, Rachel, you're a star. Keep shining. And that is the point. Truth said there is a High Court case going through now where 5 officers are being sued as individuals for torture. Well, that's something obviously for us to look out for. Yeah, interesting. Absolutely interesting. And everybody kind of agrees that, yeah, absolutely. It's traumatic. It's a home invasion, for God's sake. It doesn't matter whether, almost even more scary that they're wearing uniforms. Rachel, I've got to let you go, which is more a pity, but it's absolutely brilliant having you on with us today. Please keep me up to speed, and I will put a link to the video in our description. Everybody, this is Rachel Elnor, and thank God she's all right. Take good care of yourself, darling. God bless you. Awful. This is outrageous. I literally saw it. Sean, thank you for alerting me to that, by the way. I saw it. I was like, what am I watching? Drumstick has got a flat bike tire. I was like, what am I watching? This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Right. Talking about outrageous, by the way, anyone heard of Andrew Wakefield's new film, Protocol 7? It's about a scientist who discovers big pharma corruption. It's written by Andrew. It will get a UK premiere on September the 29th in Bath, England. And guess what? I'm hosting the Q&A. Tickets are available. I'll put a link in the description. This is the first UK screening of Protocol 7. And do you know, the thing is, I think you can. I'm a big fan of Andy Wakefield, big fan. I've followed him for absolutely years, decades even. And I know how much he's been demonized, but I think you can tell if someone is worth listening to or not by the way Wikipedia describe them. And they describe Andrew as a British fraudster, a discredited academic, anti-vaccine activist, and former physician. That man has done more than most doctors alive today, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just watching it now, says Christine. Shocking. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Rachel. May you get the justice you deserve. So I'm very much looking forward to hosting the Q&A. It's kind of a personal ambition come true, really. So I'm absolutely thrilled about that. I'm going to bring in our next guest. As I say, we are full on today. And let's not hang around, people. Let us not hang around. And I believe we are about to be joined by Dan from the Voice of Wales. So we just have to get this up and running. There we go. I think, yes, there he is. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thank you, everybody. Dan from Voice of Wales. Good to have you with us, mate. So you were in London this weekend, weren't you?
Yeah.
And before we get into that, tell people what Voice of Wales is.
Voice of Wales offers an alternative media view. In Wales, we're very restricted. Our local media are, well, they're funded by our local government. So it's very hard to get the truth out of them. Voice of Wales formed because, believe it or not, there's a gap in the market for honest media and an alternative perspective.
Yeah.
So we went for that. You know, people need to see both sides of arguments, whereas at the moment we're only getting one side. So, you know, we're trying to bring that opposite view.
And it was lovely to see you. You did lots of filming in London this
Yeah.
weekend. And why were you in London this weekend?
We went up to London for the Battle of Britain Memorial service yesterday in Westminster Abbey. We were invited up, and we wanted to go along to that to pay our respects. Obviously, there's too much now where people forget these things, these important milestones. So it's important that we went along, we experienced it, and we got to experience something that, you know, I've never experienced it before. It was a full service, full church service on a Sunday. Everyone was there. You know, Rishi Sunak was there, Keir Starmer was even there.
Wow.
And it was really nice to actually take a minute to remember the sacrifices that people actually made to give us the freedoms that we appear to be losing today. So we wanted to make the effort to go up there, but when you go to London, you want to make the most of it. So we went up on the Friday and tried to get as much done in a couple of days leading up to it.
I should, Coco. I mean, you even met Larry, number 10's
Yes.
famous cat. And in fact, obviously he didn't, but Larry did actually tweet you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which was fabulous. So lovely Larry, 17 years old. We love
Yeah.
Larry far more than any incumbent at number 10. But there were
Absolutely.
you did cover a tremendous amount in a weekend. I was very impressed, and I just thought, you know what, as a kind of up and coming media outfit, they're going over a lot of ground and a lot of important ground, stuff that isn't being covered by legacy media. And one of the things you did, which I thought was very brave, was you entered what is fast becoming something of a sort of miniature tent city right in the centre of London, one of the most sort of prime areas by Hyde Park. And you went there. Who was in those tents?
Well, it was migrants. A lot of them couldn't speak English. You know, we wanted, every time we go to somewhere like this, we'll always walk straight in and we'll ask permission. We're very polite, you know, we want to tell their story. You know, we're not there with any agenda to turn people against them. We just want to ask them things like, you know, where have you come from? How are you here? What support are you getting? And what are your future plans? What is next? So, you know, we went in to speak to them. Very clear straight away they didn't like the media, and they didn't speak much English. The lady who could speak English was very quick in telling us in, well, not as nice way, but go away.
Got you. And there was some mad stuff also going on. So the thing is, first of all, tell us about your observations. Why did you decide to go? And because a lot of people wouldn't, right? A lot of people have said this really weird. These tents are all springing up, but not doing anything about it. But you went and put yourself right in the middle of it, which is very brave because you do not know what you're going to be faced with. So, you know, tell us your observations about what you saw and any idea how it's even allowed to happen in central London.
Well, the observations were they've got a mini community. You know, it isn't just, you know, a couple of people sleeping there rough. It's all tented off. You know, even the tents have got sheeting on top as well. So it's made it all more
Wow.
enclosed. It's like a big sort of tarpaulin thing over the top. They've got a kitchen. They've got cooking instruments. So it's not something that seems temporary for them. You know, it seems like they are making themselves at home. We did also stumble across, and it was on a tree. It was opened already, but it was a court paper, which was dated, I believe, the 28th of August, where the TfL have been taking them to court to try and remove them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, because that date has passed. So now the bailiffs could go in and forcibly remove the camp. But, you know, what they said to us, this is our land. You know, this is our private property now. You're not allowed on here, and you're not allowed to bring your dogs. One of the guys
I heard that part as well. So here's the thing, Dan. I don't know if you saw it, but the guest before you was Rachel Elnor, who used to be a Dragon's Den dragon, right?
Yeah.
And the police just basically bust in through her house because a car out in the street was damaged, and they believed it was a guest in her house. But it, like, such disproportionate behavior there, and yet we have this situation where TfL, Transport for London, puts up a notice, and honestly, absolutely, these people should be evicted. There's no two ways about it. I'm like you. I'm somebody who seeks as many perspectives on a story as humanly possible. But
Yeah.
who the hell gave them permission? Nobody gave them permission to be camping in central London, and it's got
No.
to be a health and safety hazard at least.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know, we were careful where we were walking, because it was very evident that anywhere that you walk could have been a toilet. There was dirty used toilet paper. There was human feces on the floor.
Oh,
There was
come
new
on.
sanitary towels. It was filthy. It was absolutely filthy, and it weren't even as if they'd gone quite a way to do this. This was 15 yards from their camp, where you've got all this. But then there was other concerning things where there was bits of birds. So there was bits of pigeons, you know, scattered pretty much, you know, across the place. Now, we don't know for sure. When we did speak to the lady, she was very quick to cover up what she was cooking. And there was a lot of remains, feathers, things like that around there as well. So whether that's how they're surviving, I'm not sure. But it's absolutely clear that they had no intention of leaving, and that they strongly and firmly believe that that is now their land, and they're going to be hostile and aggressive to anybody that tells them different.
It's extraordinary. Let me just read you some of these comments. Oh, yeah. Exactly. B absolutely echoes what you're saying. They're also defecating on the ground outside the tents and just letting their rubbish pile up. There are bins everywhere in London, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Eating anything that moves. They never learned how to use a toilet. I mean, I think this is really concerning, because the thing is, if they can do it in central London, they can pretty much do it anywhere. The city of Westminster is one of the most expensive areas in London, except for Kensington and Chelsea. And it kind of acts as its own law in many respects. So I don't even know how they're allowed to get away from it, unless there is something else, some sort of agenda that we don't know about, that isn't written in law, that is taking place. Dan, what are your thoughts?
It certainly appears to be the case, doesn't it? You know, it certainly does seem to be a two-tier system where
Yes.
you can feel the full force of the law for doing the minorest of things, or being suspected of doing the minorest of things. However, you can do some of the most horrendous things, and you can get off quite lightly. So, you know, we're seeing that quite often now with these riots that were happening, and how the system seems to have been politicized against anybody that seems to have an opposite view. So, you know, it is going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days, because by right, the bailiffs could go in and move them now, and they would probably get the support of the police if they were to request it. But are they even going to bother? You know, this is a nice area. This is, you know, one of the nice Park Lane, Mayfair. You know, the residents can't be pleased with paying that much money for those properties and having that not 20 yards away from them.
Yeah, it is actually quite shocking. Is there anything like that happening in Wales?
Well, Wales is a little bit different, because we're a self-declared nation of sanctuary now. So what our Welsh government has done is similar to what Angela Merkel did all those years ago, where it was, we're a nation of sanctuary, all welcome, come on in. They try not to use hotels, because it is, you know, it shames them, it highlights the problem. So they priority housing. So, what we've got in Wales is they are given priority housing, and they're taking precedent over everybody that's been on that list for years. And it's kind of like what Angela Rayner said. The new Labour government are modelling themselves on the Welsh Labour government, where it is every constituency is going to take their fair share. The difference is they're not in hotels or camps. They're spread amongst all the communities in houses, no matter where it is that you go in Wales.
They've also, in the UK, they've just quite quietly decommissioned that Bibby Stockholm boat as well. Yeah. So, and the aim obviously is now to spread out the inhabitants all across the UK. And we're seeing that all the time. So the thing is, Dan, I mean, Labour government. So let me see, you had Mark Drakeford, right? Who I assume you weren't a fan, because what a draconian lunatic during C19 that man was.
Yeah. Oh, it was the worst. Like everyone thinks that we had it okay because we only had one lockdown, but it was one continuous lockdown. From start to end, even up to the point where it was, a couple of days before Christmas, and he decided, right, we're going to be closing all the shops today. So at 8 p.m, you need to go out and get your Christmas presents now. Obviously, all the shops were rammed full of people then, but so it showed it wasn't about being sensible; it was about control and power. But it doesn't get any better, because then we had Vaughan Gethin, who, there's a lot of questions around the money that he was raised and given through funding, and a firm that actually was fined for the way they were dumping their waste. So he dishonorably stepped down, and now we got Eluned Morgan, who again, she hasn't done a lot just yet, but she is someone who is, ramping up the LGBTQ plus agenda in schools. And also the 20-mile-per-hour madness that we're seeing in Wales at the moment. She's full steam behind that as well. So, things aren't getting any better. I think when it's Labour, like the saying goes, it doesn't matter who you vote for, they're all one and the same. And that's exactly what we've got.
Exactly. And the reality is you're experiencing pretty much the same things that we're experiencing in England, all the same stuff, the net zero stuff, the green agenda, the C40 cities, the 15-minute cities, all of that sort of stuff, really. And we do need to, I think we probably need to come together more, actually, people from our different nations across the UK. And I think what you're doing is really important, because I think particularly in Wales, the BBC has such a monopoly, doesn't it? And it is problematic. You definitely need an alternative news source. So what are you currently working on, Dan? Anything we should be looking out for?
There's nothing in particular that we're currently working on. We are focusing on, at the moment, we've got information come in regarding certain places that are being looked at by the government. It could potentially be migrant hotels, things like that. So we're keeping our eye out on things like that. Tomorrow, there's a demonstration outside the Senedd, which is the Welsh Government building, which is because it's the 1-year anniversary of the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Oh,
so there's been a convoy all this weekend, all across Wales, a lot of go slow convoys. They're meeting in Cardiff tomorrow at 1 p.m, and it's that's where we're going to be tomorrow, covering that, because again, that just shows that the Welsh Labour government don't care about what the people think. You've got a petition where more people signed the petition than voted for the Labour Party. And it's still an outright no, we're not changing it. We know what's best.
Absolutely outrageous. Tell us, just before you go, about that first year of 20 miles per hour, because that was quite controversial. And I just have to say, as a driver, there's a real problem about actually driving that slow sometimes. It can create more problems than not, because people get terribly impatient, start wanting to overtake you and do all manner of things, don't they? But how has it gone in Wales for that first year?
It's catastrophic. And the worst thing is that the politicians will go out and say, look, see, it's working. Look, it's benefiting everybody. But the reality is, first of all, like you said, the driving at 20 mile per hour, your car doesn't like it. If you've got a manual vehicle, your car doesn't like being, idling at 20 mile per hour, and, it just wants you to change up or down. But there's not just that. It's what they want you to do then is go into public transport. However, the bus companies are complaining because they're having to shorten their routes and even take buses off. The ambulances are complaining because it's slowing down all the traffic on the roads. The police, the fire service, all of the main road users, and emergency vehicles, emergency services who use the roads, have all said that this isn't working. This isn't working. It's not safe. Ultimately, the thing is, they did it initially for the planet, because of climate change, because it made more sense to drive slower somehow. But then they realized that, actually, that isn't true, because we're keeping more cars on the road. they're revving at higher gear. So that's actually not working. So they tried to change it to the safety. So, even their messages the messaging it doesn't line up with the goal that they're trying to achieve, which again brings me back to believing it's all about control.
Well, I have to read you some of these comments. I really do. Let's go. Jilly says pollution in Cardiff seems worse as well. And Robert says, I live in Hemel Hempstead. After the COVID, they stopped the only bus to London, which is fairly insane. And I saw somebody say they live in a village and they'd introduced, who was that? Somebody said they lived in a village and they'd introduced the 20 miles per hour to an empty, there it is, Angie. We have the 20 miles per hour limit all the way through our village, which is empty. West Coast Scotland, defo for control, not safety. And that is the point, isn't it, Dan? It is. We're dealing with globalists, and they, obviously they have their tentacles all across our globe, and that is exactly what's happening. But thank you very much for being such a strong independent voice. I think you covered more in a weekend than our legacy media cover in a month, frankly, of what's going on in London. And it matters to people. It matters to people what, to go on to those encampments and find out what on earth is happening. Because when you drive past it, you're like, how can that be allowed to happen in central London? Very peculiar. And it can't be good for the surrounding area, not at all. And we need to get on top of it. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dan. Absolute pleasure to have you with us. Keep us up to speed. Everybody, this is Dan from the Voice of Wales. Take good care of yourself. Brilliant. Have a good Monday. Wonderful. And we need more independent voices like Dan, don't we? We do. We absolutely do. So, mad stuff. What have I got here? Hello all. Borada, Grand Rising. Sorry I'm late. Had to do a milk run. Marie had to do a milk run. Got so many what's this? Gilly has been taking photos of grid lines. Healing the Silence said, thank you for coming on, Dan. You really are the man. Emma said, if only we mattered though, Sonia. I know, sweetheart. I know. Lawrence wants to know, who is our representative or spokesperson? We talk among ourselves, but who mediates between the citizens and Parliament? Well, I think lots of people thought that Reform were going to do that. I mean, I didn't personally, but I think lots of people did. And can I just say, it's sad news that Tito Jackson has passed away, died age 70. Obviously, he was one of the Jackson 5. Obviously, out of the Jacksons, Michael was always the most famous, but Tito was decently well known. So rest in peace, Tito Jackson. And what else? Annoyed. I went to see what was going on in Parliament today. Guess what? Nothing. Because they are in another recess. How many recesses have they had since they were voted in July, right? They're now in recess until 7th of October, 2024. Makes me sick. So they're not sitting because they're in recess. Right? All those cheap imported items that are loaded with forever chemicals, thousands of times above safe levels. Your government loves you, says Shug. I can't help but think that Shug's tongue is firmly implanted in his cheek to say that. Stella says those NGOs have massive influence in the Welsh Assembly. Yes. Who talking about? Pauline. He repeats Trump tropes. Okay, I think I've lost that. Yeah, recess again, Marie. They're in recess again. And until 7th of October, which I think is kind of a curious date. It must be nice to get so many holidays, Pink Diamond. Yes, it must. Shug, do you remember that? Jackson 5 was a cartoon we loved in the 70s. Yeah, you're giving away your age there, Shug, but I remember it. And they also had the Osmonds as well, didn't they? The Osmonds and the Jackson 5. Absolutely fabulous. Right. Before we bring in our next guest, let me fill you in on some news. Yes, Mary, Huw Edwards is up for sentencing this morning in approximately 12 minutes' time at Westminster Magistrates Court. If he doesn't get banged up, I am going to personally protest to the BBC. I will literally protest to the BBC. And also, the thing is he still hasn't paid back the money that he was paid by the BBC, which is in excess of £200,000. The BBC should have put a pause on his money. They carried on paying him after he was arrested and questioned, right? And investigated. They carried on paying him, and now they're trying to claw their money back. Actually our money. Well, not actually our money. It's not my money because I don't pay for the license. So talking about iffy broadcasters, it gives me no pleasure to be right on this. We mentioned this at the top of the show, and that is TNT. Today's News Talk is closing this week. It's run out of money. It will cease to operate this Friday. I, as many people know, I was the former breakfast show presenter, and I started in January, and I think I left in May. And I did so because even though they said they were a free speech station, they were none of the sort, certainly not with me. I was the most experienced journalist on the station, and I appeared to be one of the main ones that they were censoring. They brought in for a prime position as breakfast on the breakfast show, and then set about censoring me, telling me that I couldn't really talk about geoengineering, didn't want me to talk about child abuse, and didn't want me to talk about gender. And but good people are losing their incomes and livelihoods, and that gives me no pleasure whatsoever. What a wasted opportunity. What a wasted opportunity, though, Jacqueline. Wasted. And happily say I haven't had a license about 13 years. I don't watch their propaganda. So Shug. And it is a wasted opportunity because everything was there. It looked great. It sounded great. Had everything all in place. Some lovely members of staff. But you've got to be real. There are some poor presenters on there. So some people who would never have got a job, like a professional job presenting, like really, really poor. And it is a kind of poor version of Good Morning Britain, Talk Radio, GB News. And also many staff left citing the levels of abuse that they had been subject to and that they had witnessed for other people. And honestly, it was absolutely my experience, because they didn't try that with me. They did never try to abuse me. Oh, no. But I did witness what was going on with other people, and I was being told. And it was my understanding that if you stayed there for a long period of time, it was because you had to be able to take the abuse that was being handed out to you by the bosses. And as I said, they never tried it with me. They wouldn't have dared. They'd have got a full mouthful back. I gave them what for on a regular basis. But as I say, it gives me no pleasure whatsoever to see good people losing their job. I did fall flat on its face, synchronized soul. Well, Stella, it's interesting, isn't it? And Diamond said, TNT was so annoying. I can deal with the ads, but that Australian guy who kept interrupting to talk about the Australian weather was insufferable. I'm in London. It's irrelevant to me. I know many left at TNT at the same time. Yes, Peter, they did, because I think it all became too much. I think kind of like the level of abuse that people were suffering and dealing with was not good. Thank you, Lorna. Where are you? Sail away. Who funded TNT? Well, now that's a good question. And one I could never get to the bottom of, not fully. No. But as I say, it's a shame. It's a wasted opportunity. But the gap in the market is still there, and we are filling it. Yes, we are. That is the plan. And by the way, I would just like to say that nobody pays for my clothes budget because I'm not compromised. But you know whose clothes budget is paid for? Keir Starmer and his wife. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Under Keir Starmer, so we are talking about one of Labour's biggest personal donors, Lord Arley, who was actually formerly the chairman of ASOS, the fashion chain. And what we are discovering is that this Lord Arley, who has access to Parliament, what we are discovering is that he has been funding the clothing of Keir Starmer's wife, right? And so apparently he's donated almost £300,000 himself to Labour for fundraising. And then he donated 500,000. In total, it was then 500,000 since 2020, as well as giving Starmer personal donations worth over £50,000. And apparently he was also paying for the kind of clothing budget of Mrs. Starmer, as you do. And on top of that, Keir Starmer didn't declare it, which you're supposed to. It's not good. This year alone, Keir Starmer has received and disclosed nearly £19,000 worth of work clothes and several pairs of glasses from Lord Arley. What does any of that have to do with him being a member of Parliament? And why the hell is his wife receiving a clothing budget? But much worse than that was David Lammy, right? Their foreign secretary was on Sunday TV because the wife had accepted £75,000, right, for clothes. £75,000. Imagine what that would do for the poor amongst us, right? And David Lammy was justifying it by saying there is no budget to allow it to be paid by the British taxpayers. And this is really stunning stuff, that they think the British taxpayer should be paying to dress up Ken and Barbie, right? Which is basically what Lord Ali has done, right? He's got his very own Ken and Barbie. And that's what's happened. And it's absolutely abysmal, abysmal. George Galloway was funny last night. He said, what man lets another man buy his wife underwear? Lol, says Mayday. I like that. Yeah, LB, Lammy is hilarious. Comedy gold, but in all the wrong ways, right? Yeah, Julie. That only happens if someone is having an affair. I don't know what that's in relation to. But David Lammy, who wants to start World War III. Exactly, Christine. Exactly. And a pig with a bit of lipstick was good enough for David Cameron. Said Greg. I love our chatters. They're outrageous, aren't they? They're absolutely outrageous. But of course, you know, this Keir Starmer reign, for want of a better description, we're really seeing what this man is made of. The assisted dying bill, I'm telling you, that's coming in ASAP. ASAP. Esther Ranson, former TV presenter and all-round questionable individual, was diagnosed with cancer, and then she started promoting assisted dying, obviously, which is where you are euthanized to death. So it is essentially legalized suicide. You can't do it in the UK, but they want to do it in the UK. And Esther Ranson had got a promise from Keir Starmer that if he were to get into power, he would call for a debate on it. He's going to do more than that. I'm telling you, he's going to do more than that, because it is absolutely imminent. They are going to get this through ASAP, just in the same way as they out, you know, sort of heavily voted for the axing of the winter fuel allowance, which would affect 10 million elderly people out of 12 million. Quite shocking stuff. And you have to wonder why they are so now keen to imminently, potentially rush through the assisted dying vote. And here's why, right? Is because elderly people are often seen, or an elderly population are often seen as a drain on society. Not by me. I think that elderly people enrich our society with their wealth of knowledge and what they've done. And actually, for the most part, a lot of these people have put in all manner of things to our society, and we reward them by sort of kicking them under the bus, right? But remember that an elderly population also requires more social and health care, regardless of whether they've earned the right to retire in peace or not. There is a sense that the aim is to make the last few years of elderly people in the UK absolutely miserable. Absolutely miserable. We cost too much, says Dave. Resisting dying, says Wesley. Oh, they should be revered. Inversion again. They should. Absolutely. Look how care homes were treated during COVID worldwide. Absolutely. Honor says, I'm not a drain on society. I grow my own weed. God, I do love our guests. I guess I love our chat. I love our guests as well. And talking about euthanasia, by the way, has anybody seen the euthanasia pod? Which, unfortunately, I'm now using the old system again, so I can't even show you a picture of it. But do look at it online. It actually looks like a motorbike helmet. And Peter and Christine Scott, who have been married for 46 years, are set to be a British couple who will be using it, this double pod, to die together. The two-person pod will be constructed using a 3D printer, will either have one or two buttons the occupants can press to trigger their own deaths, and could be ready for use as early as January. And the pod works by replacing air with 100% nitrogen, rendering the occupant unconscious and stopping them from breathing within minutes. The inventor is Philip Nitschke. He's been dubbed, but I'm sure you won't be surprised, Dr. Death. Yes, he has. Assisted dying, as I say, is illegal in the UK, but it won't be very much longer. I'm pretty sure about it. Oh, what's that, Wendy? My 85-year-old mother cries because the electric company won't send her paper bills and she has no internet smartphone. See, all of this, the whole thing about digital ID, it is very elitist, and it literally is, you know, apart from the whole kind of control aspect of it, it is also designed to sort of push people out of society so that they are just on the fringes. And that is a perfect case in point. Give her a big hug from me, Wendy. Tara said, I revere my 93-year-old mother. She tells me a new story of her life every day and what a life she has had. Hardworking, kind lady. Yes, she is a lady. I bet she is. I feel Fiscus wants to know if it's a pod for each home. I tell you what, they'd find money for that, wouldn't they? They won't find money for the winter fuel allowance, but they'd find money to put a death pod in each home. I bet you they would. Marilyn said euthanasia has been practiced in the UK for decades. Yes, it has, my dear, but just not legally, right? 3D printer seems odd, says Sail Away. It's all odd. It's all odd. And Shug said it's so much worse than we all realise. It truly is, right? Exactly. Yo, late, but make it, says Beats and Tapes. Truly that. Marilyn, says Jasmine. My mum is 95 and she's still going strong, says Peter. Wonderful. We love to hear that. We do love to hear that. And can I just say, before I bring in my next guest, did you hear this thing about how one of the things that Starmer wants to do is a crackdown on MPs hosting TV shows under new rules? The idea is to restore trust in Parliament. Now, the thing is I've said this for a long time. No sitting MP should be a media voice unless they're commenting on government matters, right? They definitely shouldn't. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're only doing it to go after Farage. Whatever the reason is, he should not be having a media show, not a member of Parliament and a media show. It's completely wrong. GB News is particularly bad for all of this, obviously, because they have Lee Anderson and they had Jacob Rees-Mogg when he was still in Parliament. And don't forget, Foreign Secretary David Lammy actually hosted an LBC radio show while in opposition, but he quit ahead of the general election. MPs are already banned from paid lobbying. Doesn't stop them, though. We know that. But the thing is, there is no limit to what they can earn or do outside Parliament. And this leaves MPs vulnerable to being compromised. And I really think we need to look at this, because the truth is, we need them to do the job of being a member of Parliament, not the job of being a broadcaster and bringing in news stories or anything. That's somebody else's job, right? So this is not an attack on Nigel Farage, although I suspect the whole thing from Labour is an attack on him. But this is not for me. I just don't think that any member of Parliament should also have a media show. I just don't think it's right. James has never heard me talk about Lynn Fire and David Noakes. Well, that's because you've not been around long enough, James, my dear. They're actually in my film, The Business of Cancer, by the way. But I have talked about them. I don't know what they're up to right now. Last thing I knew, I think David had been imprisoned for obviously helping people. But yeah, it's not a subject that I shy away from at all, James. I can promise you that. So I think we need to change that to do with members of Parliament, because it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It is just wrong. That's it. I'm going to bring in our next guest. And by the way, people, the aim is to finish as near as damn it between 10:30 and 11:15 today, right? Because you keep me on forever because I love you so much. I love you so much, you lovely, lovely people. Here's Christine. Hello, Christine. Good morning to you. Oh, can she hear me?
Oh, I can. Hi, Sonia. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you. Christine Hart, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. You're a counsellor. You're a shamanic healer. You're an energy healer. You're an intuitive counsellor. You're also a best-selling author. All of those things are wonderful. Thank you for joining us this morning. Lovely to see you, by the way. And that is one of my favourite backdrops that I sometimes use myself because I just love it. And I think it fits in beautifully with our conversation. But first of all, Christine, tell people some of the work you do.
Well, the work I do at the moment, I started off life. I grew up in council care, and I started life. I was recruited out of there to a student who was working there into ex-military private investigations. And I did that for many years. And I didn't really like it. It was undercover, cozying up to people. Then, of course, I encountered a journalist. I ended up dating this journalist. He was the editor of the News of the World. I ended up applying there, working there for over 2 decades. I was in Fleet Street working for the Sunday Times, the Daily Mail. And of course, when the phone hacking came in, I inadvertently brought in somebody who brought in this phone hacking. They completely escaped being named by anybody. Their office boy, Glenn Mulcair, has taken the entire blame. And yes. So, yeah, it's really bad. So I and every other investigator was just had to leave Fleet Street. I mean, even one time when I found out there was in a big chocolate firm, they had had salmonella on their conveyor belt and they'd covered it up and sent this chocolate out. And I went to the Mail with the story, and the editor said, "Did you get it by using any pretext?" Well, of course, I had to speak to the huge firm, I won't say who they are, using a pretext. And I said, yeah, well, all undercover journalists use pretext. And he said, I don't want it then. So the story never got told. And I found myself thinking, I did do freelance, and I still do freelance investigative work, solving blackmail cases, different things like that, and using my experience. But I thought, what do I really miss out of it? And it was using my intuition, my sixth sense. And I thought, well, why don't I use that for other people? So I thought, well, I'll do readings for people, psychic clairvoyant readings. I was psychic since I was a child. And I thought, well, I'll have an advert on the side of my car. And I went along to get it painted with just psychic, maybe some flowers. And the designer said, you can't just have that word, you've got to have something else. And his wife said, medium. And so I said, yeah, shove that on the side of the car. And as soon as it was on, I thought, well, hang on, I'm not a medium. And as soon as I started getting people ring me, spirits started coming in, and relatives, that have passed over started coming in, and I really became good at it. And from there, I started doing shamanic journeyings with people. It's when you go into the upper world or the lower world astrally, and then you reunite them with soul parts they have missing, that they've lost, that have gone into the astral. So it's kind of grown from there, and it's good. But I still miss Fleet Street. I miss getting stories.
There is a buzz, isn't there? It can be very buzzy when you're working on a story, and things can get exciting. I understand all that. I know all of that. But obviously there's a whole load of other stuff that comes with it. But that's such a massive leap from working at the News of the World to being a healer. I mean, it's so massive, because people often associate like the News of the World with the absolute pits, the absolute worst of our tabloid journalism. But actually, I'm loath to say this, but there were actually some decent investigations that actually took place at the News of the World. I mean, that is the reality. That did also happen. So what is the most noticeable difference about your life these days?
I think when I was working for the News of the World, you get put a lot of times, you're doing undercover work. I was doing undercover work. I worked with Mazza Mahmood, the fake sheikh, and you're facing off. Sometimes it's pedophiles, which is easy enough, but then you have to look at photos that are horrific. Other times it's gun runners, it's gangland people, and it's really scary. For instance, I had to go into a cab with a cab driver who was raping girls, and encourage him to take me back to his flat. And there was only another journalist, Neville Feldback, following me in the car. And as I was in the car, I started to think, well, hang on, he's not exactly the greatest driver. It's not police trained. So you're doing work that actually should be left to the police, I think. And it's dangerous, and they put people in danger. And I still have health issues from them, such as I can't go on the London Underground.
Like trauma, like a PTSD kind of situation you're talking about. Yeah,
trauma about that. If you don't do things, if you don't go in and wide for sound, etc., you get shouted at. I remember times when I thought, I can't go in here, they're gonna realize who I am, and you just get shouted at. Just do it, just do it. So you have to go against your instincts a lot of the time. I mean, I prefer to work alone and to be asked to solve stories and stand up stories and think of my own ideas, because a lot of the time you didn't have to put yourself in danger. But the bosses were really, it was very much like working for gangsters. Yeah. And I'd worked for detective agencies that were run by these kind of guys that had killed people, that had, been to prison, were bent cops that had come out. And so I understood that kind of man. But the News of the World took it up a notch. I mean, they were completely and utterly ruthless. And the whole time I was working with them, I just had health issues constantly. I had to go and there was the Omar bomb tribunal. I had to go and sit and look at dead children, had their limbs blown off, get a call in, go down and sit with the Real IRA commanders in Dundalk. I mean, did I want to do that? To go from looking at what they'd done, sitting alone in one of their houses in Dundalk? I didn't want to do that. And of course, no, you do it, or you don't have a job. And people don't understand how horrible it was to work for that newspaper. It was really a deadly, horrific paper. I remember one time Mazza Mahmood telling me he had a memo from the top, and it was somebody saying that when you get a story off people, tell them they're going to be paid later, tell them the contract's written, and then don't pay them. And of course, people came forward to sell stories, you know, at great risk. And the bosses didn't want them paid. I mean, this was how it was. It was a
unconscionable, like such immorality going on. I understand, but in many respects, like now, it's interesting that history that you talk about, because I kind of understand now why you are where you are. That makes a lot of sense to me, because it is that sort of investigative mind that you have. And so along with the healing, which I mean, my feeling is, and my mum was a medium, by the way, so I absolutely understand all that kind of stuff. I don't have an issue with any of that at all. But my feeling is, most people are capable of intuiting, of receiving messages, but there are just these blockages. And I think these blockages, for the most part, are placed on us because we've been raised to be dumbed down through the school system, as one example, to be completely detached from our spirit. We have a kind of spiritual section, which you're kind of part of right now. And because I think it's really important that we get back in touch with that. What is your feeling? Because you must be encountering people from all different walks of life who are in need of healing.
Yes, all different walks of life, sometimes Hollywood movie stars. I think for them, you know, they often want to see what I see when we actually journey together, or shamanically journey, to look at their spirit guides, to look at other people in their life, what's going on. They come with me, so we'll both be lying down and our eyes closed, and we'll journey together. And they often say, you know, sometimes they can see what I'm seeing, other times they can't. And they always say to me, you know, I wish my third eye, they're spiritually advanced enough. Some of them are taking ayahuasca, etc. They're awake and aware enough to know it's the third eye that has the sight. And they're like, I wish, is there anything I can do to open my third eye? And, you know, I always say to them that there's a lot on YouTube about third eye awakening, that you could just play those tracks as you're going off to sleep, because I think because of this ascension that a lot of the energy is changing, and a lot of people are getting this sight. They are getting things like their friends are coming to visit them astrally, or, you know, maybe strong dreams. And so I think we're all getting more and more psychic. I mean, for me, it was not being welcome in the body when I was put into care as a child by my natural mother, and then I was adopted age 4, and they were very abusive to me. So I didn't ever come down into the body. So I've got some of that, you know.
Interesting. And you didn't come down into your body because that was part of your survival instinct? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I had to perform sex acts on my father regularly from the age of 4, which I didn't obviously like doing. I didn't want to see adult, you know, genitalia. I was whipped by my adoptive mother across the back of my legs. I can still feel it. Yeah, so I wasn't in my body, but I mean, I do miss out. I don't have a sex life. I don't enjoy sex. I don't really, have a life of the body, but I've got this other gift, you know.
That is so fascinating. I'm very sorry to hear that, incidentally. And I mean, I've got a very, you know, kind of strange background, and none of it. Actually, we were talking about that this weekend. I was saying, you know, there's nothing I regret, because I wouldn't be who I am and what I know and able to talk to people the way that I do. So this kind of brings me on to what I would really like to talk to you about. And that is, well, is there life out there? UFOs, aliens, other life. Is there life out there?
Well, absolutely, yes. I've experienced abductions myself by the grace. What people don't know is that, you know, and I've interviewed Joseph Farrell from, I think it's Joseph Farrell, no, Joseph Jordan from MUFON. And he explained to me that, because I said, well, my abductions are only astral. And he said to me, but everybody's are. So there's nobody actually having abductions where they're physically taken. It's always astrally. And, you know, Whitley Strieber wrote about that, the Greys. And since then, you know, obviously being astrally active, and I read with other people and I encounter their guides. Some people even have these felines as guides. You know, we will go up to a higher dimension, and then we will ask what messages they've got for them. And you'll encounter beings that actually are like lions, but they're not, and they shapeshift. There's loads of ET from different galaxies. There's the reptilians, the Draco reptilians, there's the felines, there's the Lyrans, there's the CIA cars, there's the bird creatures, which are like the Thoth. In Egypt, ancient Egypt, they of course were worshipping these gods. Like, of course, they've got Sekhmet, the cat goddess. They know about them. They've got Thoth, of course, which is a bird god. So they know about that, but it's all being covered up. And now, of course, we have religion. We just use the word God. We don't even know who the hell we're praying to.
Right.
So yeah, there are these beings, and they're very interested in Earth at the moment because there's a big war going on, as you know, between the Palladians and of course the Draco reptilians. And the Draco reptilians have got their hybrids on Earth. So when the Anunnaki came here and they thought, oh, we'll mix our DNA with the human monkey, the Draco reptilians did it differently. They decided to place their hybrids here. So the hybrids are the ones that are in control at the moment, and they treat the rest of us like cattle. You know, we've got we have the COVID to wipe some of us out. Now we've got the vax to change us slightly, and there'll be other things. And now there's wars, of course. That is because the Draco, they like blood and misery. And, you know, it's going to, I believe, well, from readings I've had and from the information, that it's only going to get worse, and it's going to usher in this kind of communist takeover. But of course, not for the elite. It's only the human, like us, we're not hybrids. It's only us that are going to suffer and have misery, more lockdowns. And, you know, it's going on, isn't it, with the US going into Russia. Why are they doing that? It's an alien
well, see,
war.
now this is what's interesting, right? So for me, I see it really in very simplistic terms. It's like good versus evil, right? But that's really what you're describing, isn't it? And so, I mean, things that you're talking about, like the Anunnaki, for example, and I've read a lot to do with like rhesus negative and what that means. I'm rhesus negative, and you know how there's no kind of like earthly source for rhesus negative people. So I think that's interesting as well. All of those things are interesting. But if somebody just happened upon this conversation, they may be like, have I just slipped into a parallel universe? Why are you absolutely sure what you're saying is real?
Well, not only is it just all over the place online, but yeah, I'm very cynical, obviously. Had a
Well,
bad
you're a
childhood.
journalist, former journalist. Like, yeah, well, not former, but you know what I mean? It's like it's in your
Yeah.
DNA. Yeah.
I'm completely, and I would say, what, felines and bird? No, that's going too far for me. Reptilians, why reptilians? And of course, David Icke, who I've met and had lunch with, talks about reptilians and, them ruling us, etc. And I would think, no. But having shamanically journeyed, and it's only for the last 4 years that I've been journeying, you encounter them, and you encounter these beings, and you encounter people that are connected to them on a really high level. We're now, as we are, on a very low level. It's like porridge. So as we walk through it, we don't see anything. We don't remember where we come from. So we've got this amnesiac barrier. So we're very much like animals kept in stocks, like chickens. And we have been taken over by this alien force. Now, they have to inform us what they've done to us, and they do it via TV programs.
Like predictive programming and stuff like that, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's Colony, with a film called Colony with Tom Cruise. That explains what's going on now. There's also a TV series called Oblivion. No, the film is called Oblivion with Tom Cruise that you can watch and educate yourself what's going on. And the TV series on Netflix is called Colony, which explains what's going on. We can't see what's going on because we're like little chickens in a box. And this is how they keep us. They farm us for misery. And the world wars have been about alien wars. They've been different factions fighting against each other. And this is what's going on now. There's a big battle for Earth, and there's these different factions fighting for each other. And we, the humanity, the people, we just get treated like pawns on the chessboard. Like, we will war over there and we'll send you there. And they really don't care about us. I'm not sure there's a way of rising up against intradimensional beings. I think the only answer is for us to connect with our gods and our supernatural beings, and to sort of you know, like yourself, for instance, you're probably connected to the Pleiadians, to connect to them and just be like a channel for them, you know, and to keep yourself in Christ consciousness, which Christ came to sort of, you know, he said, I am the gate, meaning the gate out of here, because we're actually in a prison of suffering here.
Yeah, and it feels like it a lot of the time as well. And I very much am grateful and appreciate my life. I do. So here's the thing. So you're not saying that aliens are out there. You're saying they're here. We are interacting with them on a constant basis, and you're saying that that is part of the problem, the issue that we're actually dealing with right now. I mean, it's I find it a really interesting take. It's not something I know a great deal about, but I'm absolutely fascinated and especially given your history. I find that it's so curious. You know, as I say, you know, you're a former, I keep calling you a former journalist, but I kind of think you never become a former journalist. It's always kind of in you, isn't it? It's always just there, even if you change jobs or whatever. So I find all that really interesting, really curious. The other thing that I think is interesting is that we have these spates, don't we, where suddenly the media tell us that this has been observed and this has been observed. What is that about? Because that always feels very manipulative, as if we're being guided in a certain direction when those spates of sightings happen.
I think a lot of people are saying that the sightings at the Golden Light ships, and I've seen them myself, actually, they're very fascinating. It was 2 o'clock in the morning and I was in bed, couldn't sleep, looking out the window, and I saw a lace effect over the moon. And it was interesting because I was just about to interview Stephen Greer. He's into disclosure of these beings, etc. I was due to meet him on the Thursday. This is Wednesday night, and saw a lace effect over the moon, and I thought, that's weird, that cloud effect there. And I thought nothing of it, tried to get back to sleep, opened my eyes again, and it shifted. And I thought, that's weird. It shifted into another kind of strange cloud-like shape over the moon. And I thought, that's not normal. And I got out of bed, looked through the window at it. And then I saw these kind of things like orbs moving. And then I noticed that they came over the house. So I was so excited, ran out in the garden and I actually filmed it. And there was these orbs and they were going back and fro, back and fro. And the exciting thing about them, they just disappeared like really fast. And they were so exciting. And I did a little take on my phone and I was like, wow, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I spoke to the local paper the next day and they said, yeah, we've seen them, you know, we've seen them. People have, you know, not seen them. People have reported them over the same area. And they actually did I thought, well, yeah, you're right about it. You know, you have my permission. And they did a really ridiculous story. They kept my tape in. It's just awful. They kept my tape in going, hey, because I was just so excited. So I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So they kept that in and said, oh, listen to hilarious reaction. And they said, we've checked and it is the local rugby pitch. They were testing their lights. Now, firstly, there's
the
no way.
local rugby pitch light testing is creating orbs.
Exactly. Just crazy. And I even rang I thought, well, let's check this. And I rang and I said, do you check your lights at 2 a.m.? Were you checking them on that day? They're like, no, we don't do that. You know, we do them just before we're doing them. So it was an out and out lie. And then they'd added that there was a Billy Ocean concert and it was lights from there. And they totally ridiculed me. And I rang up the reporter and I said, the Billy Ocean concert finished at midnight. And I said, I've rung the rugby ground and they didn't test their lights, certainly not at 2 a.m. Why did you do that kind of journalism at my expense? And we had this massive row. And I said to him, you will never make it to Fleet Street, so stay local. And it was horrible argument between us. But I just thought, mate, why don't you just report it as normal? You know, he might have even got good attention from.
No, they're not going to do that. They're absolutely not going to do that. And the thing is I think it's really key when the first port of call is to ridicule what somebody else is saying. I think it's really important to hear what people have to say, you know, and assuming you're not a complete, you know, barn pot, which I don't think you are, not for a second. I think that you are recounting genuine experiences that you've experienced. What do you think orbs are, or do you think they are an assortment of different things?
I don't know. I've been investigating it ever since, because obviously when you've experienced it yourself, you know it's real. So it's quite exciting. And I know there's people that engage with them and talk to them. Stephen Greer started boasting that he can manipulate them. So I was thinking, Was it him doing that? You know, I had to meet him the next day. I'd been commissioned by the Daily Mail to interview him, and he knew that. So was he nervous about that and checking me out? Who knows? So that was a strange connection. And I have investigated it for years now. It was a good few years ago. And it's strange. Some people, the most interesting rejoinder to that is that they are the Nazis. And in World War II, the Nazis didn't lose the war. Some of them, you know, went to, obviously they used the rat linen from the Vatican, helped them get away to Brazil, Argentina, but also some of them went to work for the Americans. And they say that some of them were working on these light ships via Marie Orsic, who are just channeling the information to make these light ships. I know Joseph Farrell has done a lot of books on this. And these light ships were ahead of their time. And some of the Nazis or the brains there escaped in these light ships and went on to a different galaxy. And some of these people say that the light ships, the orbs, are them observing us. I mean, that's kind of like really far out. But actually, there's a film being done called Iron Sky, and they actually tell that story. Even though they do it as a comedy, they actually tell that story, which I found quite interesting, actually.
And these comments are great. Actually, I was expecting a lot of comments saying, is this woman crazy and everything? And apparently not. It would appear that you've really kind of struck a chord. A lot of people have had very similar experiences. Orbs, people want to experience. I've seen orbs, absolutely. And even actually one of my mods, Synchronized Soul, there's a video online where she's literally on air. I think I've got this right, Synchronized Soul, right? And the orbs are actually behind you. You can literally see them. And I think it's really curious and really interesting. But what I definitely know, without a shadow of a doubt, Christine, is because I don't know what is and what isn't true. My mind is eternally open, not so open that my brains fall out, obviously. But what I'm in no doubt about whatsoever is that there is so much more going on in our world than we are aware of. And it is of a completely different nature. And we have been taught to, as I say, we've been dumbed down. We've been taught to become kind of disconnected from our source and not acknowledge some of the things that we are capable of. I hear and see things from other dimensions, absolutely, unquestionably. Mimi is, I think, kind of falling in love with you right now. Mimi said, please, please have this wonderful lady back. It's not even finished on the screen yet, Mimi. You already wanted it back. I get it. What about crop circles? Any thoughts on that?
Crop circles, I've never been to see a crop circle, but I've liaised with Miles Johnson, who runs this Basis. It's on YouTube, Basis, and it's called the Basis Project. And I think he's friends with Kerry Cassidy. And he lives right near the crop circles and has done a lot of investigation into them. And 100% believe, you know, that they're real. This interaction. Of course, our governments, I mean, Stephen Greer's done some amazing work on all of this. And there are people, high-ranking people that come out of the American military, and they say to him, yes, you know, we've got these ET in our bases and, you know, we interact with them. And they just keep the public in ignorance. And one of them said that the reason they do this because they think there'll probably be chaos. You know, people saying, well, you're not our leaders then because the leaders are up there. So we'll be giving them attention, not you. So it's control. I don't think there'll ever be disclosure about this because we're really a people kept in, you know, these like chicken coops because we're so much easier to control. I mean, look what's going on at the moment. People are writing things that they want to express from their hearts on Facebook and Twitter, and they're getting 2 years in prison.
Yes.
What's going on? It's dangerous. There's so much control. And of course, it's non-human control. I believe it's what's known as negative alien agenda. And you can look that up. There's a guy called, I think, Alexander Egan, who talks about negative alien agenda. And it's to lessen the human population, the human slave, and to enslave us further. So we're further locked down. We're not given as much freedom. So all this, you will know, own nothing and be happy. We're going to be put in little boxes and, you know, gulags and what have you. And, you know, much less freedom, but be kept on, but we won't have the freedom that we've had. And I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why they're increasing their control, but they are increasing their control. I think it's a battle with the other forces that are trying to release us or trying to rise us up. that they are, no, you can't rise up, we'll have to crush you down even more. And it's hard to see people like Keir Starmer, you know, channeling this energy, channeling this kind of takeover that we're experiencing. I mean, the Netflix series Colony, if you watch it, it really describes it really, really well.
Christine, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you today. I'm glad we finally did. And both of us acknowledged there was some sort of interesting synergy, synchronicity, or whatever it was, because Christine was actually due on my show on the day no, I left TNT, I think on the Thursday, and Christine was due on my show on the Friday. So it's really interesting given the series of events. I told everybody about TNT closing earlier, and it's really interesting that Christine is with us today. And absolutely, Christine, you are invited back. Absolutely. Awaken the immortal within, says Brett. I like the sound of that. And yes, you always have to be careful of the shadow, Claire. I absolutely agree with you. And that is the thing. It's good versus evil, says KB. It really is. Chris says, Christine Smith said, this is very interesting, Christine. It is indeed. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Absolutely fascinating. Please do come back again. Really appreciated, everybody. This is Christine Hart. I shall put a link in the description to Christine's work, and you should be able to contact her. Take good care of yourself. Brilliant, Christine, says Ficus Carica. Absolutely. Thank you. Take good care of yourself, everybody. Christine Hart. Wonderful. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you. Thank you. Fascinating stuff. People, I get it. You do not have to agree with everything that is said around here, right? Beats and Tapes has found a new UFO doc out Friday about UFOs and the royal family called The King of UFOs. It's an easy way to hide the footprint, says Mr. Grimsdale. What's that about crop circles? Every time you or your guests are about to say something important, an advert appears. What's that? It's life, Jim. It's like the 70s, 80s, waiting to cut off the top 40 DJ. I do apologize about that. There will come a time when I will eventually accept sponsorship from one of these people or places that approach me. But I'm just so concerned about being compromised, and I don't want that to happen, because I think it's really important that I'm able to come to you with as clean hands as possible. And I'm absolutely aware of the problems that we have on YouTube in terms of censorship, but it's not the same as when you have companies funding you and then they start to put certain pressures on you. And we talked about that last week, didn't we? Thank you, Christine, says Drumstick. If you have a story or suggestion, yes, please feel free to contact me. Yes, I can, absolutely, Soul Sand. I can invite anyone on, and it doesn't always mean that they will come on. But for the most part, when people say, would you invite blah on, I do invite them. I do. I take very seriously people saying that. And as long as I haven't already, found out that that person is a dud, I won't invite on known liars. I absolutely won't. I'll invite on somebody that I suspect is a liar to see if I can actually reveal something about them. Because the thing about a live conversation is you can't hide much, right? So I think you do often get the measure of a person from a live conversation, for good or for bad. For good or for bad. Right. Where are we? Beautiful people. Where are we? What's this? What have I got there? Carol sent me an email. I loved your email, Carol, titled Globalist Psychopaths on Full Throttle. And I thank you for it, Carol. And I will refer to it because it sums up so many I receive. I often receive Carol's very long email, and I have no problem with that at all. There was a huge amount of detail, some of which I'm not going to read out here, but I'm going to give you an overview of it and extend an invite to Carol and other people who send me brilliant similar emails, right? I'm going to give you a little idea of what Carol had said, but I'm extending an invite that please feel free. I don't just want people to come on who have perhaps already made a name for themselves as being a broadcaster, but I want you to come on. And that includes you, Carol. If you would like to come on and have a conversation with me about some of the details in your email, I'd be absolutely up for it. And as I say, Carol basically sent me a book of her life, and it was very cool to hear it. And as I say, I want to talk with people like Carol because they have witnessed firsthand, like Carol, corruption on a local and national level. And they are sick and tired of being sick and tired and want to do something about it. And Carol is very passionate in her email. And one of the things that she talked about that struck such a chord with me, and I know it will strike a chord with many of you out there who are dealing with either your local authorities or national authorities. But she talks about how in amongst this corruption, they stonewall people. That they absolutely do, right? She talks about a tag team that they use against her, about how they block her, about how they stonewall her, how they use their intimidation, silent but obvious threats designed to silence her. And but she started to give some information. I was like, this is just weird, right? Carol, this I definitely want to talk to you about. Who is dictating that you have to have an extractor fan hardwired into the mains to be on 24/7? Now, this appears to be her local authority, because I presume you're in social housing, and they are dictating that you have to have an extractor fan on 24/7. As you say, they are not paying my electric bill. And also the extractor fans, I've told them, are depriving me of sleep. They are too noisy and also harming frequency. And also they have no right to dictate that they should be on 24/7, but they are hardwired into the mains. Also, they use stock excuses of it's to stop mold, etc. Right? And what's that? Thanks. What is there a link to find Christine Hart? Sarah, I promise I will pop one in the description at the end of the stream. But so what Carol is talking about, and I know she's right, because it's written, this letter, extensive letter, is written with such passion that it's clear that this is what she's experiencing. Absolutely clear. And she kind of puts it down to what we all know is the globalist control, tyrannical dictatorship agenda, which she sees as her local authorities are clearly aligned with. And there was something else that she also talked about. See if I've got it here. Lovely hearing how she had taken her son to see Mark Atwood. She talks about how the local authorities use every excuse in the book in order not to take. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Is there's a water temperature restriction on her shower. Now the thing is that she had a medical shoulder injury and she needs it of a certain temperature, but because there has been a water restriction temperature placed on her water, she cannot get it to the temperature she needs for her shoulder. I never heard anything like this. People, are you in social housing? And if so, can you tell me if they're I believe her, but I want to know how widespread this control is going. So that's an extractor fan on 24/7 and limits on the temperature of her water. Absolute madness. Julie, you've had the same problem with my bathroom. I turn the vent off when not in use, as it's torture trying to sleep with it going. Who's Andrew? Who did I do an interview with? Is that Andrew Gold you're talking about? We have an alien invader in the comments. We came to find intelligent life on your earth, but we haven't found any yet. Cheeky sod. Yeah, I think that is Andrew Gold you're referring to, right? Yes, I did. That's what made me think of him coming on here to reach a larger new audience. I'm going through exactly the same thing. Pink Diamond, what? I want to know how widespread is this. See, this isn't. Thank you, Carol, for raising up. This is exactly why you, our wonderful viewers, are worth so much, because you alert me to stuff that I have no idea is happening. And I'm just discovering in the comments that people are going through all manner of madness here that is similar to you. I want to know how widespread this is. That's insane. Yeah, beats and tapes. I'll ask Andrew Goldon. Yes. Sontopia. This is the Count of Domain. He is Bloom Nomad. He is. The extra fan I switch off until the landlord shows up, but my water temperature is awful, says Diamond. What? Pulsed coat? What's this? They've done it to me last month. They came to check gas safety and changed the boiler setting without my permission. What? That is outrageous. That is literally outrageous. There's level of controls. Alien Invader said, we must go to find some cosmic fuel. Nano. Wait, what did Mork? Is it Mork? Mork and Mindy. What did he used to do? Can't remember. Anyway, Carol, God bless you, darling. Love and blessings to you. Please get in touch if you'd like to come on and talk more about your email. And thank you for, well, showing us. Yes, Sonia, I was saying you've been on Andrew's channel. Yes, I'd like to point out Beats and Tapes that up until, who was it? Norman, can't remember, Norman Baker. Up until Norman Baker, my my interview was the most watched. Like, they actually contacted me recently because they asked me to go back on, which I can't at the moment because I've got so much else going on, but I will go back on and update it. But they contacted recently to tell me that viewing of my video has gone over and the different videos that they've put out has gone over 1.5 million, and that was recently, and it's gained so many more since then. I very much enjoyed that interview. I can't, that's insane post cult. They didn't even tell you about it. You only found out when you had a bath. That is insane. Oh, HK, I'd love to have Andrew Wakefield on. I couldn't have him on this stream though, for obvious reasons. YouTube would do me for medical misinformation, but I believe that the Q&A is available online. And I will give you more details of that. So no IBR Stella, no news on Richard D. Hall at the moment. Still waiting for the judgment, which is, I'm going to be curious. Right, let me turn to propaganda corner. I see all over social media, there's signs of Starbucks saying we're going cashless from 1st of October 2024. We will only be accepting card, contactless and Starbucks rewards payments. And it's gone all across social media, and these big, massive accounts have said Starbucks is going completely cashless. So I got in touch with them, and actually they're not going completely cashless because it works on a different basis. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not trust Starbucks, not by a long shot. I remember, and you might not remember this, but they did mermaid cookies for mermaids, the trans children charity. And I think they raised £50,000 they gave to mermaids. Well, I mean, the fallout from mermaids is going to be going on for a very, very long time, and Starbucks backed them. So, but this story is actually inaccurate. So basically what happened was Starbucks works as a franchise system. So if one Starbucks chooses to go cashless rather, it doesn't mean all the others are. And actually Starbucks is saying no, but it's their licensing model. It means that while many of their stores are owned and operated directly by the brand, you have these licensee stores which are operated by other companies and other individuals, but it all points in one direction. Now, me personally, I like coffee, which is why I don't like Starbucks. Simple stuff. It's just like petrol. It's horrible. Like, it's just not good coffee, in my opinion. And I like good coffee. I like fresh coffee. I have a coffee machine and I appreciate coffee. And I have never since bought anything from Starbucks since they funded mermaids. Never done that. Boycott Starbucks. Tasteless nano water with a hint of coffee taste. But that is the point, is I would recommend people boycott it because this is the way the wind is blowing, isn't it? Because sometimes I wonder whether they did this at Domino's. Our local Domino's is cashless, right? And again, it's a franchise system, but I wonder whether they do one to see how it's going and then it spreads across the chain. So my bottom line is I love coffee. Yeah, that's right. I love coffee, and which is why I don't like Starbucks. Absolutely. Summer Pret is cash free, says Mayday. Some take cash. I walked out and left the food on the counter. Good shout. Stella, yeah, support your local coffee shops. I know it's not popular, but at least if it is card only, the serving staff don't have the germs from handling cash when serving food, said Pauline. Whole load of people will say those germs don't exist, Pauline, but I take your point. And Short Order Cook has never bought a Starbucks ever. And Shug uses his solo generator to make my distilled water as well. Blue Nomad said Starbucks is coffee for people who don't like coffee. I hear you. I hear you. Now, remember, people, I've got to try and get out of here relatively early today. So I just want to double check that I've not missed anything. Oh, hey, this is curious, right? Nicola Bulley. I'm sure many of you, including our overseas guests, have heard of Nicola Bulley. Nicola Bulley was the mum who went missing in January 2023. She was found several weeks later in water near her Lancashire home. She'd gone on a dog walk with her dog. Anyway, the coroner was Dr. James Adderley, who's actually also the star of a Channel 5 programme, which was called Cause of Death. A new series, and he is the senior the senior coroner for that area. But guess who else he's going to be coroner for? Jay Slater, who went missing on Tenerife, and And an inquest into Jay's body, 19-year-old Jay from Oswald Twistle, an inquest was opened at Preston Coroner's Court last month, and a final hearing is expected to take place possibly later this year once Spanish authorities have forwarded the evidence relating to their investigation to Lancashire's senior coroner, Dr. James Adderley. And I think those things are curious. I do, because obviously there are I mean, he is the senior coroner for the area. It's just that when you get two high-profile cases to one coroner, I always go a bit like, that's curious. That's very curious. Seems like it was only 2024. Yeah, B, it was 2023. Oh, Franco, that's interesting. Let me talk about, they don't have to take cash. Watch the barrister who offers advice. Legal tender is not applicable to shops. They can choose whatever they wish to accept as payment. Franco, that's absolutely right. Where they can't is if you've already had the service. So for example, hairdressers, and you go to the till and they say we're cash only, and you're like, well, I've already had the service. Then they have to take card or whatever. I mean, then they have to take cash. For example, so if you've already had the service, or you've already pumped fuel at the garage and you go and pay and they say we're card only, they have to take cash. So if you've already received the service, they have to take legal tender. So it's true. Yes, TD, not fishy at all. You're talking about the same coroner. I know, kind of curious, right? I just think that's curious. And can I just register that I do not believe the official version of events for either Nicola Bulley or Jay Slater. I don't. What, Craig? I mind being in England and the shop refused my Scottish note. That's outrageous. Shug. I love Shug. Shug, you are full of many, many great pieces of information. The paper stuff is actually not money. It's a promissory note, an instrument of debt. MK says Jay was murdered. Something is not right there. Something is not right there any more than something is not right with Nicola Bulley. And it's quite interesting because oftentimes what you find is there is the same person who comes in and handles the whole situation. Kat says things that make you go, I think it is. I really think it is. And what else? What else? Before I leave you today, and just to say, weather manipulation, as I say, absolutely insane in the UK this weekend. And Jane sent me an image first thing this morning before the show started saying, morning, Sonia, my sky this morning. Horrific. And as I say, I videoed my sky yesterday. I put it on X. Still can't believe the level of ignorance around this issue. I mean, the government have official tender forms on the government website to do with geoengineering and weather manipulation. I mean, what do you want? What more do you want? And Roger, I'm going to save Roger's picture, but really interesting, saying, sorry, it's not my best photo, but it reminded me of something that Christine had said. And I want to be able to show you Roger's picture because it's actually reported in the local newspaper. And the local newspaper described it as mysterious lines above Calderdale and Kirklees skyline. Some said they must be military jets flying in formation, others that it was linked to the Northern Lights, which were to be visible over northern England, while others speculated about satellites or something not of this world. And it's a great picture, and I'm going to show you. And hopefully we'll have the system up and running again by Friday. That is the plan. That is the plan, beautiful people. And I want to refer to, let's go to this. Cara wrote in. What's going on out there in the comments? What's going on? Yeah, all stripes on, what's that? All stripes on Saturday and Sunday, says Franco. Yeah, it's outrageous. Greg, that J-Lab was involved with some very dodgy people. As long as your son doesn't do the same, he should be absolutely fine. There was something wrong. There was something going wrong. Shug does have a theory around these mysterious cases, but there is no way on earth that he's talking about it now in these comments. I agree with you. Beyond belief, says Habiba Deval, shaming people away from interfering with the scapegoating. I have no idea what that means. I will shortly need a fixture schedule. What's going on, Laid Back Media? I am getting confused. Anyway, Cara wrote in. She said, I used to lead a complicated life full of drama, but in recent years, I have discovered the beauty of simplicity. What are your thoughts about scaling back and enjoying a simpler flow to life? Well, Cara, I vote for it. I reduce drama in my life as much as humanly possible. My work brings drama quite naturally, but I've learned to deal with it in a very simple way. And that is I have some kind of system where I decide whether it's something I need to act on immediately, something that I can act on at a later date, or something I can just dispense with, right? But the thing is that our lives have become unnecessarily and incredibly complicated, and they don't need to be. And what I've discovered, Cara, is literally the beauty in simplicity. And there is a reason why people talk about a beauty in simplicity. So, as I say, my life used to be very high drama. Nowadays, the drama comes into my life from other people. I'm not adding to it. I try not to add to it. I simply do my work. And if that brings with it drama, then so be it. But I don't go out to create drama. I don't. People who have dealt with me will know that I am not somebody who's setting out to make a big deal about something unless there's a big deal that needs to be made about something, right? Simplicity, I've learned, brings with it more happiness than actually complexity. And I think that is important to understand. As children we live for the day, right? Like I remember how simple life was as a child, right? And that is when I wasn't at school. Like the holidays, for example, I'd get on my bike, I'd go and play in the local woods with my mates. We'd come back home, we'd have tea, really simple stuff. We didn't require much. But what I know as an adult, if you're able sometimes to look at the world through the eyes of a child, it's very beautiful. It's like it's devoid of like the evils and the wickedness, the corruption and everything. And there are ways to be able to access that side of yourself. And the thing is, simplicity for me, Cara, in all forms, be that how you live your life or how you decorate your home, it has numerous benefits. Once I started to simplify my life, I was able to gain a clarity on my life that I'd never had before. And I think that's one of the most important things that simplicity has brought me. I often say to people, I'm a very simple person. And they're like, oh, I don't really believe that. But I am. I'm not necessarily I'm not talking mentally simple, but I'm simple. I don't require a great deal to be able to function. I mean, look, I bring you this full live stream without anybody else involved, other than my two beautiful mods, of course. But you see what I'm saying? And so I like to kind of, Cara, I like to scale things down as much as humanly possible. Even if I could afford a full team, you can bet I would have us working as a minimum, because I do believe in the whole idea that too many cooks spoil the broth. And I think that, but then obviously conversely, many hands make light work, that whole idea. But I think I like a balance. I personally like a balance. So one of the things that I got from simplicity, Priscilla found simplicity through illness and she's grateful for it. See, that's clarity as well, though, isn't it, Priscilla? How interesting. Yeah, Jan, I agree with you. Wish people would take more notice and write to their MPs about the geoengineering. Absolutely. Shug, my life is garden, headphones, guitar and books nowadays. Beautiful. And I bet you're happy, mate. Catherine says it's time to heal our inner child and hug ourselves up now. Give yourselves a hug, everybody. Thank you, Em. Thank you. Yeah, I promise I won't buy a Starbucks with that, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. What, cloudy? 30 Celsius in Brisbane, Oz, just last week. Robert says listen to a song called Simple Things by Minnie Rippleton. Somebody else who just said they got a Crazy Bunny just got colouring books and pens for the simple days. I love that. Thank you, Chella. Thank you for today's show. As usual, very interesting. But dogs need out. See everyone on Friday. God love her. Yes, I understand. Absolutely understand, sweetheart. Tony says some people love drama and then moan about it. Life is as simple as you want to make it. I agree. So once I start to simplify things, I simply will not tolerate other people's drama. If I have to deal with them, I will deal with them very minimally. I put them in their place and I move on. That's it. I'm not having it. I'm not allowing other people's drama to affect my life. I just don't. I deal with it as much as I humanly can, and that's it. Move on. So what I gained through the simple life was clarity, because the thing about simplicity, it's like decluttering your mind. And we talked last week about the importance of decluttering, right? And the thing about what I've learned about simplicity is less is more. Literally, less is more. But there's so much else that comes along with the simple life, Cara, that I absolutely love and I absolutely appreciate. There is a sort of ease and efficiency in our life. Once you start to streamline processes, you are eliminating the unnecessary. And with that unnecessary are complications that you simply don't need, that are designed just to confuse you, run you in a muddle. Narcissists love confusion. Oh, and by the way, talking about narcissists, I should say, people on the stream have been asking me about HG Tudor coming on. He's just responded this morning saying, yes, so we are sorting that out for this month, people. HG Tudor, of course, is on YouTube, and he is a narcissist, a diagnosed narcissist who advises people about narcissism. So just to say, with simplicity, you won't have these energy vampires draining from you, right? Because you will get a kind of time and energy conservation, because you start to become this kind of self-contained individual where you're like, yeah, well, I see you over there with your drama, but I'm not going to tolerate it. I'll take a little bit of it because I have to deal with it. But that's it. It's no big skin off my nose. And anyway, one day I'll use it. And because that's kind of like, even drama now, I'm like, well, I'll use that one day for a documentary. I do. Like, so beware, if you're causing me hassle in any way, shape, or form, you may well end up in a documentary, because I make use of everything, right? I make use of everything. And oh, but just to be absolutely clear, and that is, if you write to me, then that remains confidential unless it is for public disclosure. So don't worry about that. But what I'm saying is, if people want to bring drama to my life, eventually I'll use it. Then there is a real elegance in simplicity. I almost think sometimes it is the most spiritual kind of design that you can get, whether that's in a structure, whether it's in home. Now, I like homely homes. So I have what somebody might consider clutter, but it doesn't feel like clutter to me. It feels like a home. But up here, I try and, simplify as much as humanly possible. Then the other bonus about simplifying is you get a reduction in your stress. It's a natural knock-on effect, right? There is also, by the way, an environmental impact to simplicity, whether that is you not buying unnecessary furnishings or whatever that you just don't need. And all round, I think anything that you can do to streamline your life, Cara, is a good thing. But I think one of the most important things to come out of it, other than clarity, is an inner peace. When you start to follow a course of simplicity in your life, you just get this inner peace. Like my work can be stressful, no doubt about it, at times, but I do have an inner peace. I sleep well. I go to bed knowing that I've done the very best I can in this world. I've not attempted to introduce negativity or to harm other people. I've attempted to try and sort out the mess that has been created for us. And the other thing, of course, about simplicity is your priorities. Oh yeah, you will learn your priorities through simplicity. And then there is the personal growth that comes with it. Sonia, is With Neil and I the best Brit film to watch in an uncluttered room? With Neil and I, wasn't that classic? Absolutely brilliant. TD wants to know, do you think narcissism has risen, or are they just not hiding now? I'm not convinced that they've risen. I think we've certainly always had them in society, but I think that there are certain aspects of society now that are new, such as the internet, where we just see a lot more of them, because some narcissists are absolutely like self-evident, like Kim Kardashian is 100% a narcissist. But in the kind of like true sense of the word, because I think it comes from a fable, doesn't it? Honestly, Pauline, it is just a brilliant film for all times and places. Absolutely brilliant. Shall I look, by the way? I want to just, oh no, at the end of the show, I'm going to have a look, see what we've got on Huw Edwards. So there is, as I say, there's the personal growth that comes along with it. Shug, strangely, I found forgiveness for others gave me another depth of clarity. I'm not religious, so I was surprised by it. Fazana, I love you too. I love you too. Or jazz, narcissism is a spectrum. Modern life rewards narcissism. Yeah. And the thing about narcissists is they are generally made as opposed to born. And there's usually like two ways of becoming a narcissist. And that is if you are made the center of the world of your parents or carers, or conversely, if you are neglected. Those are two ways for starters to make a narcissist. What else? Annie, you are not a fan of Meghan Markle. You think she's a perfect example of a narcissist. I know that lots of people use her as a perfect example of a narcissist. I will be honest, I have not studied her enough. And neither, even if I studied her, I wouldn't be able to do a diagnosis, obviously, because I'm not clinically trained to do that. Beyond belief, toddlers are raging narcissists. Well, yes, it's like me, 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 me. I'm the center of the universe, right? What else we got? I thought I was being called in by my GP, not my turn yet. Inconsistent parenting also creates a narc. Yes, good chip lollipop, it does. So there you go, Cara. I think simplicity is a wonderful thing. Those are my thoughts on it and how to achieve it. I'm going to read you a brilliant quote, and then I want to go and catch up with some news before we go. Right, I want to read you this quote. It's from Robin Sharma. My encouragement: delete the energy vampires from your life, clean out all complexity, build a team around you that frees you to fly, remove anything toxic, and cherish simplicity, because that's where genius lives. And I agree. I think that is exactly where genius lives. So yes, Cara, those are my thoughts on simplicity. And let's find out. Oh, we've got the first thing I'm seeing on Huw Edwards. Disgraced BBC star Huw Edwards arrives to court wearing his wedding ring and wheeling a suitcase as sentencing begins. And they use this word for making indecent images of children as young as 7, for making child abuse images for children as young as 7. So this is Huw's day of reckoning. What else am I seeing? This is mad. Where is this? Oh, no, that shows about teenage boy goes on a classroom rampage. I'm not even sure where it is. I don't think it's in the UK, by the way. From a school in Chelyabinsk. Where's Chelyabinsk? That sounds Russian. Yeah. What else? No, I think we're kind of there. Beautiful people. I think we are kind of there. Thank you very look, I've gone to 11 o'clock. I'm hopeless, aren't I? What was that? Graping OMG. That's funny because I'm receiving a French book about energy vampires I've ordered today, says Sophie Astra Coach. Ooh, interesting. Very interesting. Interesting and curious. And thank you for the 2,141 people who have viewed the live stream this morning. We very much appreciate you. Jacqueline is concerned that they'll use his mental health as some kind of card to get him off. Rachel wants to know, has he got a Zimmer frame? That's what they usually bring for sympathy. Yeah, do you remember when Harvey Weinstein did that, didn't he? He went to court with his frame. There is a new scam to watch out for in ad break on Countdown. Don't phone the link to answer the quiz, says Pauline. I don't know what it's about. Thank you, Julie. God bless you. Another pack show, Merv. Yes. We're good guests, Sonia. Thank you for all the effort and preparation which you applied to make things run smoothly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter and Priscilla and George. Always go prepared. Absolutely. Always go prepared. I see what you did there about the suitcase and everything. No, Pink Diamond, the 17-year-old was a different story. So the 17-year-old was where Huw Edwards was giving money to this alleged crack addict to send pornographic pictures to Huw Edwards, of a 17-year-old, a vulnerable person, from a person in a position of power. But the pictures were something else. They were sent to him, apparently, by by a convicted paedophile. And so we shall see. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Pink Diamond. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Vanessa. Many thanks to you too. Thank you all. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Good Ship Lollipop. Come on, people. Hit the like, says Good Ship Lollipop. You're welcome, Silence. And thank you. Sasha Wall has a hashtag, send Huw down. See you all on Friday, says Greg. Indeed. Thank you all for being here. Love you lots. Have a terrific week. It's 2 minutes past 11. Thank you to all my guests. Thank you to everybody who contributes to this show in one way or another. I love you all. Take care of each other, says the Blue Nomad. I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. God bless you all, everybody. See you Friday. Take care. Have a great week.